Jae-ho Kim couldn't keep her eyes open. Again. This time, she was falling asleep while standing in the busy Manila airport, her small backpack clutched tight against her chest. People walked past her, giving her strange looks, but she didn't mind. She was used to it. "Miss Kim. Miss Kim." A loud voice broke through her sleepy haze. Jae-ho opened her eyes to see a short, friendly-looking Filipino man waving at her. "I'm Ramon Santos, your local guide." Jae-ho nodded and tried to look alert. She was here for a job. After all, even if most people thought she was just another tourist looking at old things in the Philippines. "You must be very tired from your flight," Raymond said, picking up her larger bag. "It's a long way from Seoul." If only he knew. Jae-ho hadn't been truly awake for more than a few hours at a time since she turned 25. 3 years ago, the sleeping had started. At first, doctors thought she was sick. Then they thought she was lazy. Now, only a few people knew the truth. As they walked to Raymond's car, Jae-ho looked at the busy streets of Manila. Tall buildings reached into the sky, while street vendors sold food that made her mouth water. She wanted to try everything, but first, she had work to do. "We'll go to your hotel first," Raymond said as they drove through the traffic. "Tomorrow we can start the archaeological survey." Jae-ho smiled at how Raymond lowered his voice when he said the last part. He didn't know what she really was, what she could really do. Nobody here did. That was how it had to be. The car stopped at a red light, and Jae-ho felt her eyes getting heavy again. This time, she didn't fight it. As her eyes closed, the world changed. Through her special sleep, she could see things others couldn't. The busy street transformed into streams of light. Under the road, ancient patterns glowed like stars. They were everywhere in the Philippines, these hidden marks. That's why she was here. "Miss Kim." Raymond's voice seemed far away. "Miss Kim, we're here." Jae-ho opened her eyes. They were parked in front of a small hotel. Nothing fancy, but that was good. She needed to blend in. As she walked to her room, her phone buzzed. A message from Sung-min Lee, her boss back in Seoul. "Any signs?" Jae-ho typed back, "Yes. They're everywhere, just like the old reports said." She put her bags down in her room and walked to the window. The sun was setting over Manila Bay, painting the sky orange and pink. Beautiful. But Jae-ho knew that under all this beauty, something big was hidden. Something that had been waiting for thousands of years. Her eyes felt heavy again. This time, when sleep came, she saw more than just patterns. She saw a network, like a giant spider web made of light, stretching across all the Philippine islands. And in her sleep, she smiled, because this was just the beginning. She would find what was hidden here. And maybe, just maybe, she would finally understand why she had been chosen. Why she, out of all people, could fall asleep anywhere and see the things that others couldn't. But for now, she slept. And in her sleep, she searched. The real journey was about to begin. The morning sun was bright over the Bana rice terraces. Jae-ho stood at the viewing point, looking at the giant steps cut into the mountains. They were green and brown, filled with water that made them shine like mirrors. Raymond had driven her here early, before the other tourists came. "Beautiful, isn't it?" a voice said behind her. Jae-ho turned around. A tall Korean man stood there, holding a cup of coffee. He wore hiking clothes and had a friendly smile. "I'm Do-young Park," he said, offering her another cup of coffee he was holding. "I saw you falling asleep on the bus ride up here." Jae-ho felt her face get red. She had fallen asleep 3 times during the 2-hour drive. "Thank you," she said, taking the coffee. "I'm Jae-ho Kim. Here to see the terraces," Do-young asked, but his eyes said he knew more. Before Jae-ho could answer, she felt the familiar heaviness in her eyes. The coffee wouldn't help. Nothing ever did. I need to sit down," she said. Do-young helped her to a nearby bench. As her eyes closed, the world changed again. The rice terraces weren't just terraces anymore. In her special sleep, she could see that each level was like a giant computer chip. Water flowed through them, in patterns that looked just like the one she had seen in Manila. But this time, something was different. She could hear a voice in her sleep. Du Yum's voice, but it wasn't coming from outside. "You can see them too, can't you?" His voice said in her dream. "The patterns. The network." Jai-ho opened her eyes with a start. Du Yum was still sitting next to her, sipping his coffee like nothing had happened. "How did you," she began, "do that?" He smiled. "The same way you can see the networks. We're the same, Jai-ho. There aren't many of us, but we're here." Jai-ho looked at her coffee, then back at the terraces. "How long have you known?" 3 years, he said. "Just like you. It started on my 25th birthday. Suddenly, I couldn't stay awake. But then I started seeing things in my sleep. Things that were hidden." A group of tourists walked past them, taking pictures and talking loudly. Jai-ho waited until they were gone. "Why are you here?" she asked. Do Young pointed at the terraces. "Same reason as you. These aren't just rice fields. The ancient people who built them knew something. They built them this way for a reason. Each level is connected to the others, making a pattern that spreads across the whole country." Jai-ho's phone buzzed. Another message from Sungmin. "Be careful. You're not alone there." She looked at Du Young. "My boss knows about you." "Of course he does." Du Young laughed. "Sungmin Lee has been watching all of us. He's the one who finds us when we first start sleeping." Jai-ho felt her eyes getting heavy again. But this time, she wasn't afraid to sleep. Du Young would watch over her. As she drifted off, she saw the patterns more clearly than ever. The rice terraces were speaking to her, showing her maps of energy flowing through the earth. And now she knew she wasn't the only one who could see them. The real question was, what were they supposed to do with this power? And why did the Philippines hold so many secrets? In her sleep, the answers were beginning to take shape. But some answers, she was learning, only led to bigger questions. Back in her hotel room that evening, Jai-ho sat on her bed with her laptop open. Du Young had given her a special code to join a private video call. Her screen flickered to life, showing 3 faces: Du Young, Sungmin Lee from Seoul, and a woman she didn't know. "Jai-ho," Sungmin said, "meet Yoon-ji Baek. She runs a surf shop in Siargao, but that's just her cover." Yoon-ji waved at the camera. She had short hair and a bright smile. "Welcome to the team, Sleepyhead." Jai-ho looked at all their faces. "How many of us are there?" 12 in total, Sungmin answered. "All Korean, all the same age, all with the same gift." He rubbed his eyes. "We call ourselves the Dream Walkers." Do Young spoke next. "What you saw in the rice terraces today, that's just the start. The whole Philippines is covered in these patterns, like a giant puzzle waiting to be solved." Jai-ho felt sleep coming again. This time, she didn't fight it. As her head dropped, she could still hear the others talking through her laptop. In her dream state, she saw the map of the Philippines. But it wasn't a normal map. It was made of light, with lines connecting all the islands. The rice terraces were glowing bright, sending pulses of energy through these lines. "She's doing it again," she heard Yoon-ji say. "Look at her readings." Jai-ho didn't know what readings they meant, but in her sleep, she could see more than ever before. The patterns weren't random. They were like a computer code, but older than any computer on Earth. When she opened her eyes, everyone was staring at her through the screen. "What did you see?" Sungmin asked. "It's all connected," Jai-ho said slowly. "The rice terraces, the islands, everything. It's like a giant computer. But it's sleeping too, just like we do." Do Young nodded. "That's why we're here. Something is hidden in the Philippines. Something big. The ancient people who built the rice terraces, they knew about it. They built their monuments on top of these PowerPoints." "But why us?" Jai-ho asked. "Why Koreans?" Yoon-jae leaned closer to her camera. We think it has something to do with our DNA. Something activated in us when we turned 25. Like a key turning in a lock. Suddenly, Jae-ho's phone buzzed with an alert. Raymond had sent her a message. Strange lights seen near the underground river in Palawan. Come quickly. Sung-min saw her reading the message. Go, he said. Do-young will meet you there. Yoon-ji, get ready to move too. Something's starting to wake up. As the call ended, Jae-ho packed her small bag. Her eyes were getting heavy again, but now she welcomed the sleep. In her dreams, she could see what others couldn't. And right now, her dreams were telling her to hurry. Whatever was hidden in the Philippines, it wasn't going to stay hidden much longer. And the dream walkers needed to find it first. Because in her last dream, Jae-ho had seen something else. They weren't the only ones looking. The underground river in Palawan was dark and quiet. Jae-ho sat in a small boat with Do-young and Raymond, moving slowly through the cave. Water dripped from the ceiling, making soft sounds that echoed around them. The lights were here, Raymond whispered, pointing his flashlight at the cave walls, like blue stars moving under the water. Jae-ho felt the familiar sleepiness coming. Here, deep in the cave, it was stronger than ever. Her head nodded forward, and Do-young caught her before she could fall into the water. In her dream state, the cave transformed. The walls weren't just rock anymore. They were covered in glowing lines, like circuit boards in a computer. The water beneath their boat wasn't just water. It was carrying information, millions of pieces of data flowing like a digital river. Look at that, a new voice said. Jae-ho opened her eyes. A woman was standing on a rocky platform near their boat, holding a camera. She had long hair tied back and wore clothes that looked more suited for a science lab than a cave. I'm Hae-nul Cho, she said, taking pictures of the cave walls. Unlike you, number 8 of the 12 dream walkers. Raymond looked confused, but he kept steering the boat. He was used to strange things happening around Jae-ho by now. The patterns are stronger here, Hae-nul said, showing them her camera screen. Somehow, her camera could capture what Jae-ho saw in her dreams, the glowing lines, the flowing data. It's like a brain, Do-young said, looking at the pictures. The caves are like neural pathways. Jae-ho felt sleep pulling at her again. This time, when her eyes closed, she heard something new. A humming sound, deep and old, coming from the cave itself. In her dream, she saw more than just patterns now. She saw images, stars, planets, maps of places that weren't on Earth. And she saw something else, a warning. She woke up with a gasp. We need to go deeper into the cave. Hae-nul nodded. I know. I saw it too. There's something down there, something big. Raymond looked nervous but turned the boat toward a darker tunnel. There's an old chamber ahead. The tourists never go there. It's too dangerous. As they moved deeper into the cave, Jae-ho's phone lit up with a message from Sung-min. Be careful. Other people are in the cave system. People who aren't dream walkers. The boat turned a corner, and they all saw it at the same time. A huge chamber, its walls covered in symbols that glowed faintly in the dark, and in the center, something that made Jae-ho's heart stop. A pedestal rose from the water, made of a metal that didn't look like anything from Earth. On top of it sat what looked like a sleeping computer, covered in the same symbols they had seen everywhere else. It's some kind of control center, Hae-nul whispered, taking more pictures. But before they could get closer, they heard other boats entering the cave behind them. Voices echoed off the walls. Voices speaking Korean, but not friendly voices. The race to unlock the Philippines' ancient secrets was about to become dangerous. 3 days after their cave discovery, Jae-ho found herself on a small boat heading to Coron Island. The sun was hot, and the sea was very blue. Do-young and Hae-nul sat with her, pretending to be regular tourists. They had escaped from the cave just in time, taking a fast boat to another island. They're following us, Hae-nul said quietly, looking at her special camera. 2 boats behind us. They're trying to look like tourist boats too. Jaiho knew who they were. The other group was led by Mirai Kang, another Korean who could see the patterns. But Mirai didn't want to protect the alien technology. She wanted to use it. Sleep, Du Young told Jaiho. We need to know what's under these waters. Jaiho nodded and let her eyes close. The rocking of the boat helped her fall asleep quickly. In her dream state, she could see deep into the ocean. Under the clear water, more patterns glowed. They were everywhere, connecting all the islands like a giant web. But something was different here. The patterns were moving, changing. They were active. A voice woke her up. Ma'am, would you like some water? Jaiho opened her eyes to see their boat driver, an old Filipino man named Ben, holding out a bottle of water. But his eyes told her he knew more than he was showing. The water spirits are busy today, Ben said in a low voice, just like in the old stories my grandfather told me. Before Jaiho could answer, Hae-Newell grabbed her arm. They're getting closer. 2 speedboats were approaching fast. On the front boat, Jaiho could see Mirai Kang standing with some kind of machine in her hands. The machine was glowing with the same light as the patterns. Ben, Du Young said quickly, we need help. These people chasing us. They want to steal something precious from your islands. Ben's face became serious. He picked up his radio and spoke rapid Filipino. Within minutes, 3 more boats appeared from behind different islands. They were simple fishing boats, but the men in them looked strong and determined. The islands have always had protectors, Ben said. My people have guarded these waters for thousands of years. We know about the lights under the sea. Mirai's boats had to stop as the fishing boats moved between them. Jaiho watched as more local boats arrived, forming a circle around them. Look, Hae-Newell pointed at her camera screen. The patterns under the water were glowing brighter. Something was happening. Jaiho felt sleep coming again. This time, in her dream, she saw what the patterns were doing. They were connecting, forming a new network. The local people's boats were sitting right on top of important points in the pattern. She woke up to see Mirai's boats turning around. The local fishermen had won without any fighting. Your people, Jaiho said to Ben. They've always known about this, haven't they? Ben smiled. The old ones built things on these islands, things that sleep in the rock and under the sea. We make sure they keep sleeping until the right people come to wake them. And are we the right people? Hae-Newell asked. You see the lights when you sleep, Ben said, just like the old ones did. That's why they chose you. As they continued toward Coron Island, Jaiho wondered what other secrets these islands held. And she knew that Mirai wouldn't give up so easily. The waves at Siargao Island were perfect for surfing. Jaiho sat on the beach, watching surfers ride the big waves at Cloud 9, the famous surf spot. But she wasn't here to surf. She was waiting for Yoonji, who owned the local surf shop. You look tired, Du Young said, sitting next to her on the sand. Hae-Newell was nearby, pretending to take pictures of the waves. The dreams are getting stronger, Jaiho said. I can barely stay awake for an hour now. A surfer walked up to them, carrying a bright blue surfboard. It was Yoonji, water dripping from her wetsuit. Come inside, she said. There's something you need to see. They'd followed her to the surf shop, but instead of going into the main room, Yoonji led them down some stairs hidden behind a shelf of surfing gear. The stairs went deep underground. I found this place 3 months ago, Yoonji said, during one of my dreams. The room at the bottom of the stairs made Jaiho gasp. The walls were covered in the same glowing patterns they had seen everywhere else. But here, the patterns were moving like waves in the ocean. It's getting stronger, Hae-Newell said, checking her camera. All the patterns across the Philippines are connecting. Jaiho felt sleep coming again. This time, it was so strong she couldn't even try to fight it. Du Young caught her as she fell, laying her gently on a bench. In her dream, Jaiho saw more than just patterns. She saw the whole Earth from above. A giant web of light covered the planet, but it was broken in many places. The Philippines glowed brightest, like a heart-pumping light through the web. Then she saw something new. Far away in space, something was coming. Something big and dark that made her feel afraid. She woke up with a scream. Everyone ran to her side. "What did you see?" Yoonji asked. "The patterns," Jaho said, trying to catch her breath. "They're not just a computer system. They're a shield. The old ones built it to protect Earth." Hanul looked at her camera screen. "Protected from what?" "I don't know exactly," Jaho said, "but something's coming. Something bad. And this shield, it's broken. It needs to be fixed." "That's why Mayray is looking for the control center," Du Young said. "She must know about what's coming. But she wants to use the shield as a weapon," Yoonji added, "not to protect Earth." Jaho felt sleep pulling at her again. But before she closed her eyes, she saw something on Haenul's camera that made her heart beat faster. "The patterns," she said, "they're not just getting stronger. They're making a map." The others looked at the camera screen. The moving lines were coming together to form a clear picture. It showed an island shaped like two hills. "Chocolate Hills," Yoonji whispered. "In Bohol. That's where the main control center is." As Jaho fell into another dream, she heard the others making plans. They had to get to Bohol before Mirai did. The fate of Earth might depend on it. In her dream, the dark thing in space got closer. And this time, it felt like it was looking right at her. The chocolate hills of Bohol looked like giant brown mounds rising from the green earth. Jaho and her friends stood at the viewing platform, looking at hundreds of these round hills stretching into the distance. "Each hill is a computer," Haenul said, studying her camera screen. "They're all connected underground." Some men had flown in from Seoul to join them. He looked worried as he checked his phone. Mayray's group is already here. They have machines that can detect the energy patterns. Jaho tried to stay awake, but her eyes kept closing. The power in this place was stronger than anywhere else in the Philippines. Every time she fell asleep, even for a few seconds, she saw more of the alien technology hidden under the hills. "The old ones were clever," Ben said. He had come with them from Koran, bringing 5 other local protectors. "They made these hills look natural. Nobody would guess they were actually built." Suddenly, Jaho fell into a deep sleep. This time, her dream was clearer than ever before. She saw how the chocolate hills worked together. Each hill contained part of a giant machine. When activated, they would power up the shield around Earth. She woke up to find everyone staring at her. "There's a door," she said, "hidden in the biggest hill. But we need all 12 Dreamwalkers to open it." "That's a problem," some men said. 3 of the Dreamwalkers joined Mayray's group, and 1 is missing. "No, I'm not," a voice said behind them. They turned to see a tall Korean woman walking up the platform steps. She looked tired, like she had been traveling for days. "I'm Soo-jin," she said. "Number 12. I've been hiding from Mayray's group for weeks, but I saw in my dreams that I needed to be here today." Haenul's camera started beeping. Multiple vehicles approaching. Mayray is coming. And she has the other 3 Dreamwalkers with her. Jaho looked at the hills spread out before them. Somewhere in those hundreds of brown mounds was the key to saving Earth, but reaching it wouldn't be easy. "Ben," she said, "can your people slow them down?" The old Filipino man smiled and spoke into his radio. Within minutes, local people began appearing from the tourist center, the parking lots, and the nearby forests. They carried no weapons, but they looked ready to protect their land. "The real guardians of the Philippines were never the Dreamwalkers," Ben said. "We were just waiting for you to help us wake up what sleeps in our hills." Jaho felt sleep coming again. But this time, when her eyes closed, she saw exactly what they needed to do. "The door isn't in the biggest hill," she said as she woke up. "It's under it. We need to go into the caves." As their group hurried down from the viewing platform, They could hear cars approaching. The race to reach the control center was about to begin. And Jeho knew that the next time she fell asleep, it would be the most important dream of her life. Deep under the chocolate hills, Jeho and her group found the hidden door. It was made of strange metal that glowed softly in the dark cave. All 12 dream walkers stood before it, 8 with Jeho and 4 with Mireille, who had caught up to them. "We don't have to fight," Jeho said to Mireille. "The shield is meant to protect everyone." Mireille shook her head. "Whoever controls the shield controls Earth. That's what matters." Ben and the local protectors stood between the two groups. They held their ground, but everyone knew that only the Dreamwalkers could open the door. "Something is coming," Jeho said. "Something that could hurt everyone on Earth. We need to work together." Before Mireille could answer, Jeho felt the strongest sleep yet pulling at her. Around her, all 12 Dreamwalkers started falling asleep at the same time. Even Mireille couldn't fight it. In this shared dream, they all saw the truth. The dark thing in space was getting closer. It was huge, like a storm made of shadows. And it was hungry. It had destroyed other worlds before Earth. They saw how the old ones had built the shield. The Philippines was the heart of their defense system because of its special location and the energy that flowed through its islands. The Chocolate Hills were the backup control center, hidden and protected, waiting for the right time. When they woke up, Mireille's face had changed. "You saw it too," she said quietly. "What's coming for us?" Jeho nodded. "Now you understand. We need to work together." All 12 Dreamwalkers placed their hands on the door. It started to glow brighter, and patterns like the ones they had seen across the Philippines spread from their fingers. The door opened silently, showing a round room filled with soft blue light. In the center was a pillar of crystal that reached from floor to ceiling. The main control panel. Haynul said, checking her camera. "It's connecting to all the patterns we saw. The rice terraces, the caves, the underwater networks, the hills above us." Jeho felt sleep calling her one last time. But now she wasn't alone. All 12 Dreamwalkers joined hands around the crystal pillar. As they fell asleep together, their dreams combined into one powerful vision. They could see the whole Earth, with the Philippines glowing at its heart. The broken shield around the planet started to repair itself. Energy flowed from the Chocolate Hills, through all the islands, and up into space. When they woke up, the crystal pillar was shining brightly. On Haynul's camera, they could see the shield growing stronger every minute. "It's working," some men said. "Earth is protected now." Jeho looked at her fellow Dreamwalkers, even Mireille, and smiled. Their journey had started with one sleepy girl seeing strange patterns in Manila. It ended with 12 people working together to save their world. "The old ones chose well," Ben said. They knew that one day, Earth would need protectors who could walk in dreams. As they left the underground room, Jeho felt different. She was still sleepy, but now she knew why. Her dreams weren't a weakness. They were her strength. And somewhere out in space, a shield made of light kept watch over Earth, powered by the ancient secrets of the Philippines.